Welcome to the Real Estate Show. From buying to selling and everything in between. Rochester's home for everything real estate. And now, your hosts from the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. It's Anthony Butera and Jason Mancuso.
Welcome to episode 105 of the Real Estate Show. Jason and Anthony are here. Hello. Welcome.
Ho, ho, ho.
Happy holidays.
Getting to be that time.
So, last episode we were busting some real estate myths.
Yep.
Right? Which it seems like, you might have this experience because you're real estate, you do real estate, but it seems like it's one of those things where everybody thinks they know stuff about, and it seems like it's mostly incorrect or partially incorrect.
Not only don't they know, they love sharing the misinformation with everybody they know.
Spread it around a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a fair amount of that. I don't know. I feel like it's not totally prevalent, or it's annoying,
Yeah.
You always get the and rightfully so. You always get like the overprotective parent type situation with younger buyers, and It's all good. I can understand. So yeah, we myth bust all day long, I guess, in a way.
So we've got we did it last episode where we had some real estate myths that we wanted to debunk and give some real facts about. We got a few more that kind of spilled over. Do you want to do a few more of these myths and
debunk some myths?
All right. So the first one we got here is that it's actually cheaper to rent than to own. The myth that it's cheaper to rent than to own.
Okay.
I don't think it's. It's not really black and white, right? I think in some cases, it can be cheaper to rent, but I think it's circumstantial, right? We're never advising people that are moving to Rochester and they don't plan on being here for more than 3 years to purchase a home. It just doesn't make sense, especially if you're going to be requiring a mortgage, right? Because you're going to have a lot of closing costs above and beyond, and you amortize closing costs over 36 months of owning the home. It's a lot more than you think you're paying because you're coming out of pocket with a lot of money up front. So right now, Jason, you could speak to this more. You deal with more of the investments. It's like a lot of people are shocked at what certain homes are selling for. I'm even more shocked with what certain homes are renting for.
Yeah, I think describing it as not being black and white is key, just because it depends on a lot of things. It depends on locations, just nationally, right? If you're sitting in Beverly Hills, it may be cheaper to rent than to buy, right? But on that same example, if you come to the table with a huge down payment, your monthly payment may end up being lower than what your mortgage payment would be per month. So it's all relative to the situation financially. But speaking to Rochester, I think the rental rates have been one of the catalysts to what we're seeing in this market in terms of being a seller's market, because it's just from if the example is a minimum down payment buyer and what their mortgage payment ends up being after they make a purchase, chances are it is going to be cheaper to own that home from a monthly payment standpoint than it would be to rent that same home. And that's just the growth in the rental rate to be where it is. On the other side of the coin, yes, housing prices have increased, but with the interest rates being as low as they are, monthly payments are super affordable now, and kind of tipping that scale or on the other side of the scale compared to rental rates. So I don't think there's a cut and dry answer to it, but it can be for sure.
And to put things into perspective, right? So if you were in, let's just, without naming towns, let's just say a Class B suburb, right? Where a Class A would be a Pittsburgh, Brighton. Let's talk about a Class B suburb. 1,000 square foot ranch in a Class B suburb, you're looking at $1,500 a month in rent. And what does $1,500 a month give you to buy? I mean, you're talking about a $190,000 house right now with these interest rates, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's why I think it's important to know like what the longevity is going to be of you staying in this home.
Yeah, it's not all, and to your point, it's not always like, okay, yeah, it's going to be cheaper to have a monthly mortgage payment, so you should buy. Again, like there's factors in play in terms of risk and reward, and now you got down payment and closing costs in play. So everybody's situation is different. Everything's relative. So
yeah, and we don't try to script around why they need to buy instead of rent because you're throwing your money away. You could throw your money away buying if you're not going to stay in that property either. Like, it gets nauseating when you hear people say that just because it's going to be self-serving to sell them something, of course, right? But not going to put somebody in that situation.
yeah, we've had plenty of situations where it ends up being, look, it's better for you to rent for the next however many versus jumping to buying. So,
because I don't want you to call me in one ear. My God, one ear. I want you
they
to call
would
me
be calling you in 1 year.
I don't want you to call me in 1 year to sell your house because now, on top of closing costs that you threw out the window, you also, you're going to be paying commissions to sell that house on top of that, right?
Yeah.
At least if I'm selling, you're going to be paying commissions.
Not necessarily myth busted, but I think it's just, kind of a, it's not really a myth. It's kind of, circumstantial to each individual. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we got another myth here that your credit score needs to be perfect in order to buy a home.
False. Jason owns a home.
I have excellent credit, by the way. Perfect.
Bragger.
So I mean, I guess I think perfect credit, I think like 800 and above, right? I guess. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely not the case. I think there's a magic, number range of being in the 600s at minimum, like without being in the lending business. We deal with it enough where I can tell you that if your number starts with a 5, it's probably not going to work. 640, right, Anthony, tends to be the magic number to really have a conversation without like unique programs or stuff like that. To get you to qualify.
600 kind of gets you to the table to have the conversation, but you're probably being coached on how to get your score up in the matter of hopefully 2, 3, 4 months. 640. Now there's lending vehicles that you would have access to at that point. 680 and above. Now you pretty much have carte blanche on most lending products.
So is there like steps people can take just in general credit score and, debt or whatever, credit card debt, student loans, like that they can take in order to up their chances or, be healthy enough to get a mortgage?
Yeah, great question. And that's why you should contact, even if your score is nowhere near ready. Our loan officer that we work with, she has a program where she'll pull your credit, and she has a program that will tell you if you do items A, B, C, D, and E, your score will go from a 575 to a 700 in 9 months, right? And people automatically assume that the only way to fix their credit is to pay all of this debt off, and it's not the case, right? So credit cards, as an example, these lenders don't care how much you owe in credit card debt. They only care about how much the monthly payment is, because that minimum monthly payment, that's really, they go off of the minimum monthly payment when they pull a debt to income ratio, because that's a mandatory debt. If you owe $75,000 in credit cards, but you can pay as little as $500 a month, they're only going to use that $500 as a debt when they're pulling your debt to income ratios, right? So that kind of always like was off to me because it's like, wait a second, these people, it's just like super risky. They owe 100 grand in credit card debt. For some reason, the banks don't care about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question, Mark, the only step to take is to, if you're trying to improve your credit to purchase a home with a mortgage, is to consult with a mortgage professional. Because we've seen it more often than not when even if you're consulting with other, say, credit professionals that aren't specifically in tune with the mortgage market, you can make steps to increase your score potentially, but it may not be a direct like correlation to you also getting approved for your loan. So yeah, even if you have a score below 600, 640, 680, whatever, make sure you get the exact game plan from the mortgage lender so that you can go out and execute it and you don't spend 3 months, 6 months, whatever on your own or with somebody else that's giving you the advice. Even though your score may raise, it may not correlate to you getting approved for a loan, for a mortgage. So that's really the best advice we can give on that topic. Just don't go at it on your own. And even a step further, don't go at it with, other, credit, credit professionals. It's not to say that what they do is bad, but you got to have the mortgage lenders have credit professionals on their end that tell you specifically what to do. So.
All right, we got time. Let's do one more of these myths. This especially makes sense for right now, that the myth is that fall and winter are bad times to buy. Fall and winter, bad times to buy.
Well, no.
No, I mean, yeah, definitely false. If anything, the argument would be made that they're the best times to buy. And I'll make that argument. And I say that because there may not be as much inventory, but come springtime, there will be way more inventory of buyers. From a percentage, the divide will be that much greater, buyers versus listings, right? So if I were a buyer, I would much rather enter the pool of the, fall, late fall, winter market.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this concept of it being an extreme seller's market that we've been beaten to death for, the last 2 years of doing this, 2-3 years, and 4 or 5 years of a market, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad time for buyers to buy, right? I mean, there's circumstances that kind of play into why it ends up being a great time to sell for a seller, and you end up with multiple offers over asking price, et cetera, all this activity that puts you in a good position. As a buyer, I mean, again, we beat this to death too, but with the interest rate being as low as it is, you can't look at that as anything else other than it's a great time to buy. Fall and winter, kind of fall more so than winter, because we find that like as soon as New Year's comes, like activity starts to spike, and that may as well be the start of our spring market, and then it spills into getting into like March, April. Depending on winter time, if it's like a deep freeze, if we have that winter where it's 45 days of 2 feet of snow and 0-degree weather, that can have an effect on activity in the market. But the fall especially is when, like, from the consumer standpoint, buyers just kind of they pause. Activity really, you feel the pause more than ever. It's not a screeching halt, but it slows down in the fall more than any other season. And it's just after Labor Day, kind of kids getting back to school. Then Thanksgiving rolls around before you know it. Then it's Christmas. That kind of has an effect on the consumer mindset. So as a buyer, you now have less competition against other buyers. So that can't be anything but good. What we're experiencing right now is there's less inventory as well. Although there may not be 30 offers that you're competing against like it would be in the spring, there's still, 5, 6, 10 competitive, very competitive offers that they you have to go against. So it's not like this isn't a conversation of, hey, you're going to steal anything in the fall. It just may be less crazy.
Yeah, I think the important piece too is urgency levels. I feel like sellers that are putting their houses up right now, most of them have to sell, where you get a lot of sellers that put their places up trying to capitalize in the spring market and get a number they may not get, that want to sell but don't necessarily have to. And when you're competing with buyers in the spring market, you're competing with families that have to close before the school year starts. And if your move isn't determined by school district, I would say, I would advise them not to get in that mix, because now you're competing with buyers that have to buy by a certain date, and there's a value above and beyond fair market value for them.
Yeah. The flip side of the coin too, for sellers, like, we can take, that opposite approach to why it's a great time to sell in the fall too. I mean, you're also kind of less competition for similar houses to yours. So, the demand kind of goes up. So, with the market we've been in the last 5 years, there's really, you can find wins for both sides of it. So
cool. Well, you could check out the other Mythbuster episode at anthonybuteroteam.com. We got the real estate show tab there. You click there. We got YouTube videos. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and follow Anthony Butera Team on Facebook, and it's all right there too. All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Real Estate Show. Find us on Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. If you're looking to sell or buy, talk to the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. Visit AnthonyButeraTeam.com.